Hey everyone, before we get started and before we watch this video, I'd just like to say that thanks for watching, but also that this is my first video that I've done for narration, storytelling and editing, so bear with me if the audio level sounds a bit different in some places. I try to, or at least for my best, I try to edit, because when I hear it back myself it sounds fine, but you may find other places that sound a bit different. So just let me down in the comments for places I can improve, because that really helps out. And yeah, thanks so much and enjoy. It's been 16 years since I first stepped foot onto the wasteland. A snot-nosed kid with a smell of acne cream, I wasn't ready for what I was about to witness. A game that has changed the lives of many and is still being talked about to this day. Fallout 3 is not only a great game, but also an experience that has attached to me for all these years. Something that I still can't put down. Armed with a 10mm pistol, a stun baton, and an abundance of Nuka-Cola, I was ready to start my journey. And my word, this was one hell of a journey. I'm not sure why I keep coming back to this game. I have 100%ed it on many occasions and even done lots of modded walkthroughs, but yet I still pick it up every year and go through it again. Maybe I'm addicted to the story and the multiple choices that even makes me question my own morality, or if I'm captivated by the depressing atmosphere that continuously keeps me on my toes. Fallout 3 is the game that keeps on giving, and for one of those reasons I can't seem to say goodbye to it. But that's enough of that for now. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when I first met my first girlfriend. Her name was Fallout 3. When Fallout 3 was first properly shown off back in 2008, I was 9 years old and still on the verge of discovering puberty. Back in primary school, and contemplating what I wanted to do with my life. I think at one point I wanted to be an astronaut. Wow, what could have been. At this time of my life I was still unfamiliar with how most modern RPGs worked and the mechanics they presented. Whether that was from a top-down view or a third person, at that time I was mostly comfortable with straightforward FPS games with the likes of Call of Duty and Halo, although I did absolutely adore Gears of War, which is a third-person shoot-'em-up. What I'm basically trying to say is that most RPG games at the time was not my style. Take the original Fallout game for example. They were top-down and had turn-based style mechanics, and I found it very difficult to stray from the very unfamiliar tactics of Call of Duty, or the simple style and ludicrously janky, low-budget titles, Alien Colonial Marines. I felt quite left out, to be honest. As I became more aware of the RPG genre, it still never really excited me the way other FPS games did. I still remember playing Bioshock 1 and being completely terrified by the big daddies and the crackheads that was smacked up on Adam, the drug that was used in the world of Bioshock. RPG games can never seem to draw me in. And like I said, I felt quite left out as all my friends were playing Dungeons & Dragons, Diablo, or even the Elder Scrolls titles at the time on the PC. And unfortunately I missed out on Morrowind when it released on the original Xbox, as I was probably too young and naive. Well, I'm still naive, but now I'm older. It really wasn't until Oblivion did I really get my first taste of massive open world RPG games on home console. As up until that point, most RPG titles were mostly PC. That's probably one of the main reasons why I never got into those sort of games, as they were never released on home consoles. My experience in games as a 9-year-old was very basic. I played mostly Call of Duty or Gears of War. I never really ventured off the beaten path, which is quite ironic really, because that's exactly what you would do in an RPG game. It wasn't because I hated other games, it's just as a young lad you wanted to play what was popular at the time. And unless you was a die-hard gamer, games like Fallout 1 and 2 could never shine above the likes of Call of Duty. It was almost unheard of to play anything else other than top shelf titles really. It's sad, but that's the way of life. But then in 2008 it all changed. I still remember to this day the opening black and white footage of the American Dream that was being displayed in the trailer. And as the camera moved away from the 50s TV you saw a desolate wasteland. It just still gives me goosebumps talking about it to this day. Fallout 3 was everything I ever hoped for, an open world FPS and third person game on home consoles, and for it to offer 100 hours with different things to do and things to see. After being absorbed by the glamorous footage of what 2008 YouTube could render, I was agitated to find out when the next trailer would drop, or when the new piece of information would leak. For days I would scope the internet looking for things on Fallout 3. You could argue that I was in love. I mean, I would argue that Fallout 3 took my virginity, but that's another story. The talented people at Bethesda made the perfect choice to create an amazing world to be played both in first and third person, but I mean, who the fuck plays it in third person? I'm only joking. It's good to have the choice. Fallout 1 and 2 paved the way, and Fallout 3 put it on the map. In my opinion, Fallout 3 is not only one of the greatest RPG games of all time, but also one of the best FPS games. Goodbye Call of Duty, I've fallen in love with someone else. You see, this game had loads of weapons, from shotguns to assault rifles, to hunting rifles, and to laser rifles, each one feeling different from the last. Now I loved it because it felt like a sci-fi game, it felt like a war game, it felt like a straight up shoot 'em up. And so every little aspect of the game felt different. There was loads of weapons, there was loads of enemies, there was loads of things to do. And it never felt like I got bored of it. I can go in stealthily with my sci-fi weapon, or I can go in guns and blazings with my shotgun. Guns and blazings? Guns and blazings. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is this game had it all. It had weapons to make you feel like the ultimate badass. Or it had weapons to make you feel like a stealth pro, you could say. But yeah, nonetheless, I loved it because it made it feel so immersive. And what Fallout 3 done well was that each weapon that you picked up, each weapon that you carried, had its own unique character. Hey everyone, so sorry to break it up during halfway through this episode. So I'm going to break it down into two parts. The first part being why I love Fallout 3, as you can already hear. The second part being the mechanics, the story, and the characters. To dive deeper into it really, because I didn't really realise how long or how to really go about this video. Yeah, so that's what I just thought I'd let you know. I'm really sorry to cut through halfway through, but if you can like, subscribe, and just leave a comment below how I can improve, that really helps. But I just thought I'd let you know now, just so if you're wondering where all the lore is, where all the characters that I've not touched on, that's just because I wanted to not make it too long of a video. So thanks so much for sticking around and enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you. Fallout 3 is a game that leaves a deep impression, not just for its post-apocalyptic wasteland, but for the way it frames survival as something deeply personal, emotional and haunting. Imagine stepping out of Vault 101 into the blinding light of the capital wasteland for the first time. That moment where everything is foreign, yet eerily familiar, sets the tone for a game that feels less like an escape and more like a profound reflection on humanity's resilience. One of the main reasons Fallout 3 stands out for me is how it takes isolation and turns it into a canvas for storytelling. The Lone Wanderer isn't just a protagonist on a mission to find their father, they're a person grappling with the ruins of a world that once thrived. Every corner of the wasteland has a story, some whispered in the form of old computer logs, others screamed through the remnants of crumbling buildings. It mirrors our internal battles, searching for the meaning in the broken pieces left behind. For me, Fallout has portrayed many brilliant factors that has kept me engaged for years. Whether it's diverse characters, the detailed megastructures that was once a thriving community, or the quest that has been thoroughly written in a way where you actually feel for the NPCs. You can even have a dog. I miss my old travelling companion. Dogmeat was his name. I've never really found another RPG game that has kept me going for as long as this. I've tried others, bear in mind, that have come slightly close, but never a masterpiece like Fallout 3. To name a few, there's Skyrim, another Bethesda title that has very similar mechanics to Fallout, but with no guns, dragons, and the sweet cakes are actually sweet, unlike the abomination from Fallout. Another title, Fallout New Vegas, is basically Fallout 3, but just felt like a major expansion rather than its own game. But before I get into that shenanigans, I'll keep that to another video. Most other games just don't click the same way Fallout 3 did. When the going gets tough, the right song plays on your trusty Pip-Boy, and the sun just sets on the horizon, everything is just touch perfect. Obviously, until you get your ass kicked by a Deathclaw, you'll be begging to play that much easier Call of Duty. I remember reading up about a location called Rockopolis, which is an unmarked place in the far corner of the wasteland, and to my surprise, and after 100 hours of the game, I still do not come across it. Yes, you could argue that it's just a small location with a few bits and bobs, but the fact that I overlooked it for so long made me question what other things did I miss. Now I'm even questioning my own life. God, what next? Question if my mum is my mum? Moving on from that wreck, my life, not my mother, I finally came to the conclusion that every once in a while you'll come across things in life that you'll truly love. A piece of art, some music, or a Tesco meal deal that includes bacon and egg sarnies. But in my case, it was Fallout 3. Everything just worked, it just clicked. Apart from that janky bugs and a few glitches here and there, and the final product being somewhat in working order, but after a few major patches and 5 DLCs later, Fallout 3 was a must play. What I'm trying to say is that Fallout 3 came out at the right time of my life, where I didn't know who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, and yet Fallout 3 allowed me to escape and be someone new, different and even stranger than my current self. The weapons, the atmosphere and the multiple enemies you came across in the game just made it feel unique than other games on the market at the time. The game added 5 DLCs, which out of those, Point Lookout and The Pit were amazing, and the other 3 weren't as good unfortunately. They was fairly okay but not memorable. Point Lookout added a swampy dystopian fantasy that made you feel like a real life redneck You can even brew your own moonshine and come across a killer clown mask, while the pit was just a destroyed community trying to persevere in the barren world that was decimated by nuclear fire, and the blast has now created some abominations called the Trogs that litter the area known as the Pit or Pittsburgh. These creatures crawled on all fours, just like my mother, and had the ability to strike the fear in the protagonist. I still can't look my mum in the eye without thinking of the Trogs. Lastly, unlike most games these days, Bethesda at the time decided to create a post-game update that made the game longer and add in additional endings. This way, it made the game feel more open-ended and better. In the original, it just ended and cut to black once the protagonist finished his quest, but in the update, the protagonist would wake up and continue with some epilogue quests. You got to saw the aftermath of your actions, which was amazing as it felt more engaging. You now had some conscience with your decisions throughout the game, as you'll now see what will happen in the end. Will you poison the wasteland or will you save it? Whatever the decision you choose, you'll see the consequences. I hope I've managed to convince you why Fallout 3 is a masterpiece and up there amongst the greatest games of all time, alongside amazing titles of Bioshock, Zelda, GoldenEye, and even Sopranos' Road to Respect. I'm only joking about that last one. Fallout 3 watched me grow from a boy to a man, and every here and there it makes me feel like I'm 10 years old again. I just hope my acne doesn't come back with it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in part 2.